The story of KukuFM's rise is fascinating. This audio content app that caters to tier 2 and 3 users in India is valued at more than 1400 crores. And by the way, they need more than 70 crores in revenue today. Their growth story from zero in 2018 to more than 2 million paid users today is mind-blowing. So in today's video, as always, we'll go in depth to understand insights behind the rise of this Bharat app, starting with the audio insight. The year is 2018 and three guys, Rajan Bisu, Vinod Meena and Vikas Goyal, are tinkering with an interesting app idea that is very personal to them. See, while the new India was becoming modern and trendy in 2018, these guys had a very Bharatiya upbringing, to say the least. Their life, revolved around Hindi. It was their primary language, they went through school with Hindi, and they even cracked JEE in Hindi to get into IIT Jodhpur. Now, before KukuFM was anywhere near in the picture, in 2017, these folks were introduced to the world of podcasts, and their minds blew. Entertainment, education, productivity, just free content flowing from their phones, and of course, they were addicted to it. But there was one clear problem. They mostly used apps like Spotify and YouTube Music, but most of the audio shows available on them were mostly available in English or in Hindi max to max. It was okay for them, but they were surprised that their families and friends back home were missing out on great content value just because they didn't speak English or even Hindi in some cases. So in the run-up to build a company, this became their first problem statement, that there was a huge gap of content supply for the Bharat audience. Plus, these folks are busy, right? They were working in companies, they were doing their startups, and they were navigating an occupied professional life. So most of their time, they didn't even look at their phone to consume content. So when they dug deeper here, they found out that for 30% of the day, folks don't even have access to a screen. So it burst the bubble of video content in their head, which meant that people were not spending time watching videos or reading. They were listening to audio. And audio is great when users can't watch their smartphones or TVs. And you'll also come to this later in the video. But folks who were listening to audio content were mostly listening to music. But you can't keep listening to music every day. It gets boring for most folks. This space of audio plus regional language content seemed ripe for disruption. And this was their insight to get into the audio space. Let's go deeper here by zooming out. See, look at the market here, bisected between screen engagement versus entertainment. You would have YouTube and all the OTTs on the top left here being mostly entertainment, and it requires users to be on screen. InShots and Times of India and most news apps are more knowledge heavy, but again, requires you to read, so on screen. Gaana, Saval and Jio, these are audio platforms, which means off screen but mostly known for music and entertainment again. Here is a massive gap for an off-screen audio content player that mostly dabbled in knowledge, education, productivity and so on. Plus, if you think of all the other players that were doing Bharat content on OTT, you would find that disruption was needed. You had Alt Balaji and Z5, which focused on sleazy and steamy content to gain rapid growth. So this trio knew that they needed to do the exact opposite. So they wanted to position their app as a thing you would use to sound cooler in your social circle. Basically, think about when you watched a video, gained knowledge from all the educational content, and then went and bragged to your friends about how your knowledge on that topic was so on point. The same insight. In 2018, they launched KukuFM. Now, humble beginnings, so they started launching content in Hindi. And here are some numbers that will blow your mind. Today, they have more than 2 million paid users. And paid users only count for 11% of their total user base. Imagine if they opened up their monetization tab. The amount of people they can start charging money from is crazy. Now, 90% of these paid users have opted in for an annual subscription plan, which shows the amount of trust that these folks have built on their product. And 70% subscribers are actually from tier 2, 3, 4 towns. But here's the number that really shook us. 20% of their users are paying for any software product for the first time in their life. Think about it. That's more than 4 lakh people being brought out of nowhere to participate in the market. This is the exact definition of not eating the existing pie, but making the pie bigger for everybody. So riding this trend, they started with podcasts in 2018. But podcasts were a massive failure. See, at the end of 2018, the number of podcast listeners in India has started to go up. It went from 25 million to 40 million. It's a great number, but this is not the reality on ground. See, Bharat users didn't care about listening to a two-way conversation. And this is when they figured out that audio didn't only mean podcasts. It also meant audiobooks, educational courses, kids stories and daily soaps and so much more. So all of their effort with a failed podcast content launch now started going back into cracking content at the base of it. And this setback made sense. See, if you think about it, podcast as a format has been borrowed from the West. It works in the US because they've had a culture of radio talk shows. I mean, think about Howard Stern or Larry King. That format just transcended to now what we consume with Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss and the biggest podcasters out there. But India has never had a podcasting culture. India has always had a soap opera culture. See, we love our entertainment and storytelling. It's built into our fabric. And we of course have Bollywood and our serials to thank for it. So this was a massive user insight that this Chayo had ignored. But with this new insight in mind, they decided to double down on fiction stories. And this blew up. Stories on love, heartbreak, history, full soap opera on audio. It got them hundreds and thousands of users. They were happy. The work felt worth it finally, and they could see the light at the end of the tunnel. They could see more investor money coming in. Charts are going up, up and up. But while this chart was looking great, their retention chart started to go down. And when they dug deeper, they understood that while the fiction content was great for acquiring users, these users didn't stay for long on the platform because they would churn when their series got over or when they would just get bored from listening to all the fiction. All their dreams came tumbling down again. I know, this is puzzling, but this is the interesting 0 to 1 journey of building a startup. You really do need to not only have insight into your product, but crazy depth into your users, their aspirations, the macro reality that's guiding their decisions, where they spend time and money, basically having a solid ICP or an ideal customer profile that you are building for. And this is exactly what we teach in the first week of our immersion program. So like I said, remember, 22% of KukuFM's users are paying for any software product for the first time ever. These are Bharat users, which means that they're not only new to paying for content, but they're also new on the internet itself. They're using the internet for the very first time. So here's the thing. The goal for first-time internet users is just instant gratification. It's a new jazzy world for them. I mean, think about yourself when you first use the internet. So you go full ham, consuming short videos, entertaining stuff, movies, news snippets, viral content, and so much more. But as you stay longer to consume more, these users, they wanted to use the internet to add more meaningful value to their lives. Plus, they don't need to be looking at a screen to get more value. Off-screen could also be used to procure information and knowledge. Now this was a major insight, and voila. If you go to KukuFM's website today, you will see categories of self-help, personal finance, history, information, career, and in the corner somewhere, you will find love and like fictional stories. Today, 90% of the content consumed on Kuku is self-help based. You feel that this is great, right? Kuku can keep adding more categories of self-help and keep expanding, right? No. See, KukuFM's right to win is in the variety of content it has. Its right to win is in building content in more Indian languages. Their whole play is a regional audio OTT. So in Q1 of 2022, they added content in Tamil, Telugu, Kannada and Malayalam. And 3 months later, they already had 150,000 paid TTKM users. So while Hindi user growth is 30% month on month, TTKM users are growing at 60% month on month. And it's not even a surprise that Netflix now shows 7 audio language options when you look at any content that you watch on their platform. KukuFM's right to win isn't the variety of content. It's in building content in more Indian languages. And that will be their core growth lever. Now, This growth is interesting because Audible was already bringing regional language audiobooks to India. But the audiobook penetration was super low. I mean, why? This is something that Kuku folks understood. Content written in text and then converted to audio has a very suboptimal user experience. They figured out that content has to be written audio first, which is why it has to be original. But creating so much content is not easy and has a massive cost associated with it. So that team understood that their right to win isn't really creating content in more Indian languages, but to innovate so quickly is not an easy job for a 4-year-old startup. So enter user-generated content. Now, before we go into it, if you're loving KukuFM's 70 crore revenue growth journey, you'd love the GrowthX Demo Day. It's become the mecca where we teach the entire startup ecosystem the science of revenue-led, and it's joined by top founders, leaders, and operators giving their Sunday to learn the science of revenue-led growth. On this demo day, we break down the revenue journey of companies like Headspace, Jupiter, Third Wave, and so many more. The link to apply for an invite is in the comments. Let's get back to it. To understand UGC or user-generated content's role in KukuFM's growth, we'll have to zoom out slightly. House of Cards is an original content created by Netflix, whereas The Ranveer Show is a podcast produced by Ranveer Allabadia and is UGC for Google Podcasts. Now, for content businesses, the moat is always in creating more original content because, of course, they own the complete rights to it, which means they can license it to other platforms and make money on licensing fees. Plus, they have lifetime rights to showcase that content on their own platform. Here's the interesting bit. Because KukuFM is still early as a platform and they've decided to go the OTT route where they'll charge for a subscription like Netflix as opposed to an ad-supported model like YouTube, UGC looked like an avenue that would allow them to churn out content extremely fast. Now, how they did it is interesting. So going back to early internet users again. See, they first start watching entertainment, then they progress to gaining value. And when these folks have gained value, they want to stand out, they want to brag, and they want to become content creators. So KukuFM banked on this aspiration and enabled folks on their platform to create content. But trust me, cracking UGC is extremely tough. I mean, think about it. Why the hell would people post anything on your platform, put any resource of theirs for your company? Now, for you to get your users to create content for your product, about your product, on your product, watch this carefully, and we teach this at GrowthX, right? See, to get UGC going, you'll need to understand 3 things. First, where your users spend time, what your users speak about, and building content that helps people consume or share. Let's dig deeper here, right? So think about how Crore ranks for every Google search. So when you search for, hey, what's the best place to stay in Bangalore? A Crore answer shows on top of Google which says, hey, it's Indiranagar. Then when you click on it, you not only read this answer, plus you see more answers on places to stay in Bangalore. Now as a user, you go deeper into reading more questions and answers. You get so addicted to Crore that Crore says, hey, you've been reading these answers, why don't you go ahead and answer this question about Bombay? Because you live in Bombay. So here, a user has gone from an internet surfing person to a reader on Crore to a writer. Now this is a super smart base of a content loop, or UGC as we call it. The Crore gets its users to write the content while it takes care of the SEO, which is the distribution bit. Now every UGC requires 3 things: a hook, a generator, and a distributor. The hook is the content that's getting created, the generator is the entity creating the content, and the distributor is the channel via which it's getting distributed. Let's break it down. For KukuFM, the hook is its audio shows, the generator is the user turned creator making these audio shows, and the distributor is KukuFM itself. They're distributing the content via its own app to millions of users. Now, why do people create UGC or create content? Could be multifold, right? It could be that they're chasing fame, money. It could be that they just want to give back to their community, or they just love creating. It could be any of those things. I mean, think about it. How can you get your users to talk about your product? One hint, this only works when you solve for your users' need to signal to their network. But this was a masterclass in UGC by Kuku. It got their content engine rolling, but it didn't quite work very well for them because of one core reason: audio quality. Because when the medium of content is only audio, then even the slightest drop in quality, where even a smidget of noise is audible in the background, it gets punished by users. So even after creating mechanisms to record great quality audio from a user's phone or their devices, they couldn't really ensure consistency on quality. But this strategy evolved, and Kuku decided to build their own creator army. Today, there are more than 30,000 creators that work with them to create high quality audio stories on a project basis. Basically, everybody working to build a massive supply side on creating regional productive content. And it's working. 50% of the content on KukuFM today is exclusive to them. They have 5x the library of Netflix India, which is 90% English, by the way. And they've built their entire content library for the amount Netflix spends on creating one original episode. Now, all of this comes together to create this massive 1400 crore audio giant. But this is only the starting, honestly. We are super bullish on what's coming up for Bharat. I mean, all the development that the tier 1 internet first generation saw will slowly trickle down into the innovation happening for the Bharat audience. I mean, the myth of Bharat not having money or not giving money for products is going away. They have the money, they now have internet, and we'll see players build the exact categories that were previously built for tier 1. So for example, Meesho building e-commerce, which was previously built by Amazon and Flipkart. Moj building short form social media, which was previously captured by Instagram, for example. And Kuku is building an audio OTT, which in the past was taken over by Prime and all these players. Even Aether's co-founder in a podcast said that they don't see any disparity on purchasing or usage patterns across tier 1, 2 or 3 on EVs. But there's more depth here. You could say that existing players won't be able to expand to lower tiers easily. We'll see new players disrupting the segment. For example, you need a Meesho coming in to disrupt e-commerce for Bharat. Because it's just not in the DNA of the older big players to build for this space. Look at all the failed attempts made by Amazon, Flipkart and many others who were solving for e-commerce. I mean, we could on the other hand see consolidation where these Bharat players might get acquired by the biggies, but we'll see when that happens. But if you're more interested in products that are living the Bharat growth story, we recently broke down Meesho's growth journey on a Wireframe episode. Do check it out. That's it for today. I'll see you in the next one.